Ryan O'Reilly marked an exciting international milestone this summer, but his numbers a little closer to home last season could be cause for concern. We're going to discuss what Nashville needs more of from the veteran on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this episode shouting out our Locked On Predators insiders and our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio, and friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I am Emma Lingan, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
We are diligently working through player evaluations after last season and digging into what this offseason and the short-term and long-term future holds for these 2024-25 Predators players. Today, we are breaking down the season that was for Ryan O'Reilly, and we're also going to talk about the new addition at the deadline, Michael Bunting. What did they deliver, and where do the Predators go from here with two veteran players who aren't, at least on paper yet, part of the long-term plan for the Nashville Predators? A lot to get to with these two players, but before we dive into all of that, I want to let you know this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, Emma, we are talking about Ryan O'Reilly, and our greatest wish is that he does not listen to this episode because, you know, Ryan O'Reilly takes things to heart. And last season, and look, this is true across the board. If you're listening, Ryan O'Reilly, this isn't all about you. Last season across the board, tough season for most everybody on the Nashville Predators roster, even for somebody like Ryan O'Reilly, who, as Barry Trotz loves to call him, is a serial winner. I mean, it's just what is real. Of course, Ryan O'Reilly, 34 years old. That's not old. I know what you people are thinking. 79 games played in the regular season, 21 goals, 32 assists, 53 points. Emma, overall, just generally speaking, what did you think of Ryan O'Reilly's season last year?
Fine. I don't know. I just think that, and I feel like I'm going to be a broken record as we do these player evaluations. It's so hard to evaluate individual players based on the year that was, because nobody had a good year. And it's hard with the whole like chicken and egg, like, is it somebody's fault? Now, I'm sure if you ask Ryan O'Reilly,
we know whose fault it is.
Yes, all his fault. It's only Ryan O'Reilly's fault.
He reminds me of Dobby, you know, from Harry Potter, when he feels like he betrays his master. He just beats his head on things. I'm like, Ryan O'Reilly, don't be Dobby. Don't be Dobby.
Can someone just give him a sock and
give
just let
him a sock?
Maybe Jonathan Marchessault from his pile of dirty laundry in the middle,
right out in the middle of the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, yes, Ryan O'Reilly. His season was certainly not what we expected from him. But again, nothing about this season is what we expected. I think part of it was, you know, we had said coming into the season, you don't break up that Swedish meatball line until they give you a reason to. I don't think they gave Brunette a reason to, but he did it anyway, and, you know, kind of struggled after that. Yeah, like, even remember Gus Nyquist? Remember when he was on the team? Like, he was a deadline trade, but it feels like he has not played on this team in 84 years.
Yeah. That's so true.
It's weird. It feels like he's been gone for so long.
Yeah.
I don't know. But again, Ryan O'Reilly is the task at hand. He did not have a great year. for him. And
For
I'm
him.
sure if you ask him, he had an absolutely horrendous year. But
He will dobby his way through that explanation. Looking at his season, trying to kind of pull one interesting stat. And here's the thing. One stat does not tell you everything. So let us preface everything we say about stats with stats tell you the truth, except when they're lying. Okay. But I thought this was really interesting. This season, Ryan O'Reilly had 8 multi-point games, played 79 games, had 8 multi-point games. He had a 4-assist game versus Buffalo in February. He had a hat trick versus Calgary in January. But last season, Emma, Ryan O'Reilly had 19 multi-point games. And there were times twice where he had 6-game point streaks the previous season. You know what I'm saying? Like we went from 19 multi-point games to 8 multi-point games. And that stat wouldn't bother me because the plan bringing in these new additions was we're going to have more than one line firing. We're going to have more than one offensive weapon. And yet this team scored fewer goals, won fewer games, and Ryan O'Reilly just didn't produce as much with his line mates. And I think you hit on something that's really important because it comes down to part of this conversation has to be about his line mates and breaking up that Swedish meatballs and Canadian bacon line so early. So early. Friends, do you remember back, Emma, 86 years ago at training camp where we watched Nyquist, Forsberg, and O'Reilly, and we were like, it's like they haven't missed a beat. It's like they haven't missed a beat.
86 years ago. Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah. And yet by 4 or 5 games in, that line was gone. That line was gone. When you look at O'Reilly's production, Emma, are there other factors that jump out at you, or is his production just another part of the mystery that was the lack of offense, the vacuum of offense of the Nashville Predators in 2024-25?
Yeah, I think it is important to, qualify what I started off with by saying that I don't think that, obviously, before last year, Ryan O'Reilly had not played with Philip Forsberg and Gus Nyquist, and he was doing just fine. So I don't mean to
Yeah.
imply that it was only, breaking up that line was the only reason that his numbers went down. I just do think it is this whole, like we keep talking about, the chicken or the egg thing. Like, is it what is causing this lack of offense? And at the end of the day, Ryan O'Reilly is not someone that you should be relying on to be a volume goal scorer for you. That's not his game. Now, he became that for the Predators in the 22-23 season, or no, the 23-24 season. He became that. But ideally, when you sign guys like Steven Stamkos and you have guys like Philip Forsberg on your roster, suddenly you don't need Ryan O'Reilly to be that
Yes.
guy. So I don't think that we should be saying like, well, the Predators don't, their offense disappeared because Ryan O'Reilly stopped scoring goals. No, you shouldn't need him to be the guy who's scoring all the goals.
Absolutely. And I think you talk about those multi-point games. What you want from O'Reilly, you want those assists. That's what you want to see from him. So I agree with you. He was one of the guys who got it done for the Predators 2 seasons ago, but he's not the guy that you need to be doing all of the heavy lifting. Coming up, we're going to talk about what the Predators do need from Ryan O'Reilly and talk to you about why next season's success is going to matter when it comes to Factor's future. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all of my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is so easy to lose track. But that is where Monarch Money comes in. It is your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money, it's not just another budgeting app, it is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investments, and your spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you can start building wealth. Monarch Money makes for easy financial collaboration as well. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals together, and stay on the same page without extra stress. So take control over your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Emma, you made a great point. You don't necessarily want or need Ryan O'Reilly to be your heavy lifting goal scorer, but what do you need from Ryan O'Reilly next summer or next season?
I mean, you need him to be a leader. And again, people have all kinds of reactions to this, saying like, well, he's a culture guy. People say, well, we don't need culture, we need goal scoring. Okay, fine. I mean, I think the correct answer is you need both, but okay. And they don't always need to come from the same person. But I think that kind of goes into this whole leadership paralysis situation that we had, or that we've been talking about, where it's like, it was, Ryan O'Reilly was one of the guys, and yes, he's still part of the formal leadership group, as an alternate captain, with Philip Forsberg and Roman Yossi, but I still think it was like too many Chiefs, not enough Indians kind of thing, and now nobody really knows that it was all that kind of like just deferring to each other, whether it was conscious or not. And so I think that, you need him to try and be now. If he sees something that's wrong, he's going to try to fix it himself, because obviously everything that goes wrong is his fault. So if he sees that they're not scoring enough goals, he's going to try to score all the goals. If he sees that, whatever it is, like, he's going to try and fix it himself, but he can't do that. Like, no one can, and they shouldn't have to. So I think that it just more clearly defined leadership, I think, is what you need from not just him, but from the rest of the leadership group.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting to me, somebody with the experience, the success that Ryan O'Reilly has had. I mean, he was very upfront in locker room cleanout. Like, look, I struggled with this. I struggled with speaking up, not speaking up, doing my own thing, trying to take over. Like, this was a challenge across the board. And I think the leadership piece is one of the biggest pieces for Ryan O'Reilly. This is what he had to say when he was talking about leadership and the team.
I think there was times earlier in the year there was opportunity to kind of, take control and have more dialogue, more conversation, kind of step up and do something I don't think I did enough, which I'm disappointed in, but I think I know there was opportunity, and talking with other guys too, I think there was opportunities where we could have came together, and unfortunately we didn't. And yeah, there's lessons in that. As a leadership group, I think we will obviously get together and talk more about that and find ways, but definitely falls on us, myself. There's some changes that we have to be able to make on the fly and hold each other accountable, and if we're doing it, the rest will follow.
I love how he ended that. If we do it, the rest will follow, because that is another part of the leadership piece. In talking with the young guys, remember, we had so many young guys, so many young sprouts came in, made their NHL debut this season. And so many of them look at Ryan O'Reilly as what is he doing? I'm going to watch what he's doing. I'm going to have what he's having, because, he's been so successful. He's such an experienced voice in the locker room. And I think if O'Reilly and Yossi and Forsberg and Stamkos and Marchessault can kind of figure out how we say the things to each other and how we hold each other accountable and how we all stay on the same path, that is going to affect the whole locker room. That's just another part of that leadership piece. This is a guy that everybody looks at. This is a guy that everybody in that locker room watches.
Well, and I think another thing that's important to discuss with Ryan O'Reilly when talking about, what you expect from him this coming season is, let us not forget that he was talked about quite a bit at the trade deadline this past season. Now, he does not have trade protection in his contract, but Barry Trotz treated him as if he did. And essentially, we're not trading you unless you're okay with it. Which essentially what that adds up to is that some team was going to have to really overpay to get Ryan O'Reilly. And I don't think any team was willing to do that, which honestly, I don't really blame them. But it is now well known and documented. Ryan O'Reilly wanted to stay. He wanted to stay because he believes in the group and he believes in what they can do here. Now, I don't think anyone would have blamed him if he had said, yeah, I want out. I don't think that would be, I think he really sees this as not necessarily, the captain going down with the ship, but he really thinks that they can, he believes in the group that they have. And he knows he's not an idiot. He can see, he knows that he's got one more year on his contract. He knows how old he is.
Mm-hmm.
He knows that the clock is ticking on his career. Has he won a Stanley Cup? Of course, but that just makes you want it that much more. So if that's really what he wants, and he could have had the opportunity, he probably had plenty of opportunities to go somewhere else where he could do that. And he didn't want to. He believes in the group here and he wants to stay here. Okay, great. Now let's see it. I think that on one hand, the team, whether that's, the front office, the coaching, whoever, owes it to him to be like, hey, we see you. Thank you for staying and for believing in us. Now we're going to show you that you were right. You made the right decision. And on the flip side, though, he owes it to the rest of the group to help bring that out of this team. What is it that you see in this team? Why do you think they can do it? And be part of the, be the change, I guess. Not that it all falls on him or on any one person, but I think that is, yeah.
Yeah. As a part of the leadership, they all have to own that. They have got to own that and they've got to talk it out this offseason and get it straight. The other thing I think that makes Barry Trotz want to hang on so tight to Ryan O'Reilly, yes, it's the culture piece, it's the leadership piece, it's the experience piece. But I also think Ryan O'Reilly is so key when it comes to transitioning to these younger players. At the end of the season, you saw O'Reilly and Forsberg playing with Luke Evangelista. Now, is Luke Evangelista the next Philip Forsberg, the next Ryan O'Reilly? Well, we don't know yet. But you got to give somebody like Luke Evangelista a chance. And when you put him with a Ryan O'Reilly, you've got a little bit of security there. You've got a ton of experience there, and you're going to learn from somebody who is the best. And if you can have two good players and a young player, Barry Trotz talks about this all the time, the math of if you get two veteran players and then one young player, and you develop that young player, and then you can have a veteran player and a young player and a younger player, and you can kind of, move the pieces like this. That's how you're going to develop players. I think Barry Trotz desperately wants Ryan O'Reilly to be one of those guys that develops young players, that helps develop these young players. And I can't fault him for that. You want your players down the road in their career to look like Ryan O'Reilly, to do the things Ryan O'Reilly does on and off the ice. I do want to celebrate one thing. Ryan O'Reilly this summer, of course, played for Team Canada. They were eliminated at Worlds. And so I'm very concerned about his mental health right now. But he was celebrated. He is the player who has played the most games in Team Canada history in international competition. And I was like, look at Ryan O'Reilly out there doing the Canadian thing. He had 2 goals, 2 assists in the tournament. I'm curious, Emma, hopefully playing at Worlds, a good palate cleanse for him. Hopefully the elimination and not making it to the gold medal round will eventually settle in for him. But I'm glad to see him play some more hockey a little bit longer into the spring in that kind of thing. I think that will be really good for him.
Yeah, I hope someone has done a wellness check on him. Have we heard from him since the elimination? Like,
hopefully he's in Turks and Caicos feeling bad. But okay, because the sun is rising every day. The sun rises every day, Ryan O'Reilly. Talk to Jonathan Marchessault.
yes,
He needs a Marchessault midnight.
midnight. It's a new day. In case you didn't know, Jonathan
Yeah.
Marchessault will tell you.
That's right. Coming up, we did get to see a new face at the trade deadline who spent a lot of time in front of the net, where I like to see Ryan O'Reilly and maybe didn't see him enough this past season. We're going to talk about the role moving forward for Michael Bunting. All right, Emma, we just talked about Ryan O'Reilly. One of the things that I loved so much from the previous season, Ryan O'Reilly in front of the net, those tip-in goals. I love those. I felt like we missed some of that with him this season. But then along came the appendix heard round the world, no longer attached to the player named Michael Bunting. Of course, he became a Nashville Predator at the trade deadline. The Predators got Michael Bunting in a 2026 4th-round pick in exchange for Tommy Novak and Luke Shen, and that's a podcast for a whole other day, that whole deal. Michael Bunting, 29 years old. He will be 30 years old when next season kicks off. I loved the little teeny tiny glimpse that we had of Michael Bunting. And here is a fun little stat from Michael Bunting. He averaged just over 4.5 shot attempts for Nashville per game after he came here. And I was like, thank you for being the player that we weren't on a cellular level yelling, shoot the puck at. Way to go, Michael Bunting.
Yeah, I mean, he came as advertised, I think. You know, he's a guy who he's got that sandpaper element. He'll mix it up. He'll be aggressive. He'll be physical. He'll get to the dirty areas. He gets in front of the net and he can play that role. I do think, there's plenty of decisions and trades and whatnot that Barry Trotz has made throughout the year that I didn't necessarily agree with. I do genuinely believe that Michael Bunting is a good addition to this team. Now, that being said, just being the reality of it, if this team is not in a playoff position, playoff position by the, trade deadline next year, then he gone.
He gone.
I mean, because he's going to be a great trade chip if they're not in a playoff position, which is fine because you get value from him either way. But I do think that he's a good, he was a good addition to this team, and I would like to see what he does, with more of a full training camp and full season with this team.
I agree with you. Here's one of the things that I love / hate about the whole Michael Bunting thing. Love that he came in here and, like you said, this was the guy that was doing the hard things. He was in front of the net. He was scoring the greasy goals. He was a little bit physical. He was that grit. He was that sandpaper. And Nashville didn't have anybody doing that, but not because they didn't have anybody capable of doing that. And that's the rub for me. Now, I am all about Michael Bunting. I loved what we saw from him. I think he was a bright spot in a season that had very, very few bright spots. And he was, like you said, I love the term, as advertised. You got exactly what we heard we were going to get from Michael Bunting. But it baffles me that it took getting a piece at the trade deadline to really find a Nashville guy who's going to get in front of the net, who's going to battle and win that space, who is going to score those greasy goals. it's not, and I keep coming back to, it's not that there was nobody capable of doing that. They just weren't. Like, Nashville did not have a lot of rebound chances. They did not have a lot of second and third chances. They weren't scoring greasy goals. And then fortunately along came Michael Bunting. And so for me, I'm with you. This is one of the players I am most excited to watch in training camp. I am most excited to see a bigger glimpse of, but I am also terrified because you are right. If Nashville is not in a position to compete in the postseason, he gone. And then what? And then what? And then what happens in front of the net? I don't know. If Nashville makes a playoff run, if they make a playoff push, and this is somebody that stays with the Predators, do you see them re-signing him after next year?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't know.
Yeah.
It depends on so many things. I mean, if they could get it done at the right price, I could see him maybe signing like a 2-year deal or something. But again, he could very well, be more inclined to test the market, test free agency, where another team will probably pay him more. Again, I don't necessarily see him as a guy who is a necessary piece of the Predators' long-term future. So I don't think you need to lock him up. But I do think that he helps this team right now.
Yeah. I look at what is in the pipeline. Like, what do you have that is similar that may come up through? And this is a hard one to say for sure because we just did not see him much this past season due to injury. But I think of somebody like Reed Schaefer. Reed Schaefer he's that big physical presence. He is fine playing in the hard areas. He is more than happy to do some of the grit work. And so you have to wonder, if Reed Schaefer is somebody that might step into a role in a more long-term way. I don't know. That's somebody I think we would have seen this season had he not been injured. I think we would have seen Reed Schaefer make an NHL debut. And, let's see what he does in training camp and see what his career trajectory starts to look like when it comes to the NHL too. But that's somebody in the back of my mind. I'm like, if you lose Michael Bunting, maybe this is a young player that can do some of the things that Bunting has been doing. But I agree with you. Cannot wait to see Michael Bunting in training camp. And hopefully he will continue to be as advertised because you know what? We don't want to be hornswoggled. We do not want to be flim-flammed anymore, people. Like, we want as advertised this season across the board. So what did you all think of Ryan O'Reilly's season? And what did you think of the addition of Michael Bunting? Let us know your thoughts on their season and where you see them fitting in with the Predators moving forward. You can, of course, leave us a comment on this YouTube video. You can also leave us your thoughts on social media at LO_Predators as well. Emma, before we wrap up this Ryan O'Reilly / Dobby and Michael Bunting episode, will you let everyone know where they can find you and your work?
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingan, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find me sneaking around the locker room, dropping Jonathan Marchessault's sock in front of Ryan O'Reilly to free him. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well. That's going to do it for today's episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks again so much for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back tomorrow with an all-new episode. We will see you then.